In 2023, Julia Roberts faced a truth about her family history that shook her deeply. While taking part in a television genealogy program, she learned that some of her ancestors had owned enslaved people and operated a massive farm that covered about 2,000 acres. What made the discovery even more painful was learning that children as young as 6 years old were forced to work there. As the records were revealed on camera, Julia could not hide her reaction. Her face showed shock, sadness, and disbelief as she tried to process what she was hearing. It was a heavy moment, and it arrived during a period when her life already felt unsteady. At that time, her career was no longer soaring the way it once had. Some of her recent films had failed to connect with audiences, criticism followed her work more closely, and her personal life was under pressure. Her marriage was strained, and controversies seemed to surround her name more than before. For a woman who had once been seen as the unstoppable queen of Hollywood, it felt like everything she had built was slipping through her fingers. The timing of this painful discovery did not feel random. It felt like part of a larger reckoning unfolding in her life. Julia Fiona Roberts was born on October 28, 1967, at Crawford Long Hospital in Atlanta, Georgia. She was the youngest of 3 children in a household that revolved around creativity, performance, and the world of theater. Her parents, Walter Grady Roberts and Betty Lou Breed, were both deeply involved in acting and writing. They had met while performing for the United States Armed Forces, entertaining troops during difficult years. By the time Julia was born, however, theater work had slowed down, especially after the Vietnam era, and money had become a serious problem for the family. They were struggling so badly that they could not even afford to pay the hospital bill for Julia's birth. Then, something remarkable happened. Coretta Scott King, the widow of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., quietly paid the entire bill. She did this because the Roberts family ran the only racially integrated theater workshop in Atlanta at the time, and the King children had attended classes there. Walter had even personally coached Yolanda King. This was not an act of random charity. It was rooted in shared values, trust, and mutual respect during a time when segregation still shaped nearly every aspect of life in the South. Today, the story feels almost unreal, yet it shows how 2 families came together through courage, art, and a belief in equality. Julia grew up with a rich and mixed background. Her family roots stretched across England, Scotland, Ireland, Wales, Germany, and Sweden. Her mother was Catholic, and her father was Baptist, which meant their home carried 2 sets of beliefs and traditions at the same time. Their acting workshop in Atlanta became a safe and welcoming space for children of all races and backgrounds, even though racial tension and division were still very real in the late 1960s. Old photographs show Julia as a small child wandering around the workshop, surrounded by costumes, scripts, and performers. At that age, she had no idea she was learning about storytelling and emotion long before she could even spell her own name. Her parents poured their hearts into the workshop, believing deeply in its mission. But behind the scenes, life was far from stable. Walter's health began to decline, money problems grew worse, and the pressure of keeping the school alive weighed heavily on the family. Even so, Julia's world remained filled with voices, rehearsals, imagination, and creative energy. All of this shaped her quietly and deeply as she grew. The moment when Coretta Scott King paid the hospital bill became a quiet but powerful turning point in Julia's early story. It happened when her parents were nearly out of options. Work had dried up, bills were piling up, and the stress of the times felt overwhelming. The King family stepped in because they saw the Roberts family as part of a greater movement rooted in fairness and humanity. Years later, Bernice King confirmed the story publicly, describing it as a reflection of her parents' generosity and values. That single act helped the Roberts family survive a desperate moment, but it also left a lasting mark on Julia. She would grow up understanding compassion and justice not as ideas from books, but as actions shown by real people. Childhood photos show her growing up around Decatur, Georgia, close to the acting school, surrounded by constant activity and creativity. Yet inside the home, things were tense. Walter's health continued to fail, and money remained a constant worry. Still, the workshop stayed open and became a creative hub for the neighborhood. Julia absorbed everything around her, the beauty and the struggle alike. In 1972, when Julia was only 4 years old, her parents' marriage ended after 17 years. Her mother later married a man named Michael Mose, and life in that home quickly became frightening. He did not work, drank heavily, and often exploded in anger without warning. Julia would later describe him as the worst nightmare of her childhood. Her brother Eric openly admitted that he feared for his sisters during those years. The house was filled with shouting, broken objects, and sudden violence. Julia sometimes lost cherished items, like her Walkman, because Michael destroyed them during his rages. She often ran to friends' houses just to feel safe. Eventually, Betty Lou realized how dangerous the situation had become and filed for divorce in 1983, later calling that marriage the biggest mistake of her life. By then, however, the emotional damage had already been done, leaving scars that followed Julia into adulthood. The pain in the family went even deeper. Julia's half-sister, Nancy Motes, struggled for years and died by suicide in February 2014 at the age of 37. She drowned in a bathtub after taking a mix of drugs. The coroner confirmed the details, and handwritten notes she left behind raised painful questions. Some people close to the family claimed the notes mention long-term emotional wounds and feelings of being bullied, connected to the complicated family environment. They said Julia's name appeared in the notes. Julia never spoke directly about those claims. She only released a short statement expressing her deep sadness. The tragedy brought renewed attention to how the instability of the Roberts and Mose years continued to echo long after childhood. Julia also lost her father, Walter, in 1977 when she was only 10 years old. His death left a hole in the family that never truly healed. Around the same time, Eric's life began to spiral into addiction. He became famous while also becoming deeply troubled, and his behavior frightened Julia and her sister Lisa. Eric later admitted that his sisters were genuinely afraid of him during those years. Their relationship broke apart and stayed distant for decades. Over time, Eric looked back with regret. In 2024, he publicly apologized, saying his addiction had created chaos and pushed his family away. Part of that pain came from a custody battle involving Eric's daughter, Emma Roberts, who was born in 1991. When Eric separated from Emma's mother, Kelly Cunningham, he fought for custody. Julia supported Kelly instead, believing Emma would be safer with her. Eric felt betrayed and spoke angrily in interviews at the time. Years later, he admitted Julia had been right and said his addiction was the true reason he lost custody. Time softened some wounds, but the memories never disappeared. Nancy's suicide notes added another layer of sorrow. Friends said the pages described trauma reaching back to childhood and feelings of being overlooked or pushed aside. Whether every detail was accurate or not, the pain was real, and the story forced the public to look closely at the fractures within the Roberts family. The coroner confirmed that her death was caused by drowning combined with drug use, and the existence of personal notes made the loss even harder to ignore. Despite everything, Julia kept moving forward. She finished school at Campbell High School in May 1985 and originally dreamed of becoming a veterinarian because she loved animals. But watching Eric act slowly pulled her toward a different path. At 18, she left Georgia for New York City with very little money in the hope that modeling could help pay for acting classes. She signed with the Click modeling agency in 1985 and worked on catalog shoots, though she was not tall enough for runway modeling. The money was barely enough to survive. Eventually, she began taking improv classes, and that decision changed everything. By 1986, she was auditioning constantly, taking any chance she could find. Her first acting job came in early 1987 on the crime series Crime Story, where she played a young rape victim. The role shocked some of her relatives because of how dark it was, but Julia approached it seriously, using workshops and emotional preparation to understand the character. Her performance surprised many people and showed that even at 19, she could handle heavy material. It also opened doors to more auditions. She soon quit modeling completely, realizing it would never lead to the life she wanted. Through Eric, she landed a tiny role in the film Blood Red, filmed in 1986 and released in 1989. She had only 2 lines, but it counted as her first movie. She lived on about $300 a month, worked odd jobs, borrowed money when necessary, and attended dozens of auditions. Rejection became routine, but she kept going. In 1988, things began to change. She appeared in Satisfaction alongside Liam Neeson and Justine Bateman and earned $50,000, an amount that felt unbelievable compared to her earlier struggles. Critics noticed her presence, even if her acting was still developing. She also appeared briefly on Miami Vice as a drug dealer, leaving a strong impression. By the end of that year, she landed a role in Mystic Pizza, and everything before it suddenly felt like preparation. Mystic Pizza marked Julia's true arrival in film. She played Daisy Araujo, a young waitress in a small Connecticut town, and her energy immediately stood out. The movie was made on a modest budget and performed well, becoming a quiet success. Critics took notice, and audiences connected with the story. Soon after, she was cast in Steel Magnolias, a film that brought her closer to stardom but also tested her deeply. She played Shelby, a diabetic bride, delivering emotional scenes that moved audiences worldwide. The film was a huge success, but the experience was painful. The director often targeted Julia with harsh criticism, mocking her and shouting at her on set until she broke down. Despite the abuse, she gave a performance that earned her a Golden Globe. She nearly quit acting afterward, but she stayed, and that decision changed her life. Soon after, she was offered a role that would redefine her career, a film that was not originally written with her in mind, but would turn her into a global star. Meg Ryan turned the role down in 1989, saying the script made her uncomfortable and disturbed. Molly Ringwald also passed on it, along with several other actresses. When the project finally reached Julia Roberts, the filmmakers tested 6 women in total, but Julia stood out immediately. She had a rare balance of warmth and toughness that made it impossible for them to look past her. She was offered $300,000 for the role, which felt unbelievable at the time because she had been earning around $3,000 per film before this. The deal was handled through her agent, not by Julia directly, but once the movie was released, her performance made her the defining star of 1990. It completely changed how Hollywood viewed romantic female leads. Vivian was imperfect, emotional, and human, and audiences connected with that honesty. Even one of the most famous parts of the movie, the red dress, almost never existed. The costume designer, Marilyn Vance, originally planned a black dress. At the last moment, she switched to red, inspired partly by Julia's love for thrift store fashion and bold choices. That single decision created one of the most iconic looks in movie history. The moment with the jewelry box snapping shut, where Julia jumps and laughs, was completely real. She was genuinely surprised, and that natural reaction became the heart of the scene. The red dress later sold at auction, was copied around the world, and helped Marilyn Vance win a BAFTA award. As the film's success grew, Julia's confidence grew with it. She was offered $2 million for the role, but she hesitated until she felt sure she could shape Vivian into someone with real kindness and depth. At that time, female stars rarely had the power to push back or make demands, but Julia did it anyway and succeeded. Her Golden Globe win proved that her instincts were right. Afterward, studios tried to lock her into fairy tale roles, but she resisted because she did not want to be trapped playing the same type of character again and again. Pretty Woman became a massive hit, earning $178 million in the United States and more than $463 million worldwide, making it the most successful romantic comedy ever made. Even with that success, tension followed her. She and Richard Gere had disagreements during filming, especially around intimate scenes. Julia felt he approached them too seriously, which made her uncomfortable at times. Still, they worked through it, and their chemistry carried the film. Julia learned how to stand up for herself while protecting her character, and audiences could feel that strength on screen. Fame came with a dark side. After the movie's release, a man named Jason James Mooney began stalking her. He was arrested in 1991 and later sentenced to 10 years in prison for threatening her life. The experience deeply frightened Julia and pushed her to seek therapy for the first time. She realized how quickly admiration could turn into danger. The media labeled her America's sweetheart, but she felt trapped by that image. She had played a prostitute on screen, yet the public now expected her to represent purity and perfection. The contrast confused her and made her more protective of her private life. That same year, she appeared in Flatliners, playing a medical student experimenting with near-death experiences. When she saw the final cut, she was shocked to discover that many of her key scenes had been removed without her approval. She sued the studio for breaking her contract and demanded that her original performance be restored. The case was settled quietly, but her victory helped set an example for other actors fighting for creative control. It also showed her how easily someone's work could be altered without warning. In 1991, she starred in Sleeping with the Enemy, a thriller about a woman escaping an abusive marriage. The film earned $175 million worldwide and confirmed that Julia was now a box office force. Despite the success, she felt uneasy. She worried that Hollywood would continue casting her only as a woman in danger or distress. To avoid being trapped in that image, she turned down similar roles and searched for stories that allowed her characters more freedom and strength. That same year, she accepted the role of Tinkerbell in Hook. At first, she was excited, but the experience quickly soured. She learned she was being paid $3 million while Dustin Hoffman received $5 million. She was angry and felt undervalued. Negotiations became tense, and she briefly walked away before returning with a better deal. Even then, she disliked the costume and felt disconnected from the character. She clashed with director Steven Spielberg, and although the movie earned more than $300 million worldwide, their working relationship never recovered. They never worked together again. By 1997, Julia returned to romantic comedy with My Best Friend's Wedding, and audiences fell in love with her all over again. The film made $299 million globally. The karaoke scene where she sings I Say a Little Prayer was mostly improvised. Julia convinced the director to let her try it her way, and the moment became unforgettable. Behind the scenes, however, there was quiet tension. Cameron Diaz reportedly felt overshadowed and worried that all the attention focused on Julia. The tension never exploded into open conflict, but people on set sensed it, and rumors followed them for years. 2 years later, Julia starred alongside Hugh Grant in Notting Hill. The film earned $363 million worldwide, but their off-screen relationship was far from warm. Grant later joked about Julia's mouth and made comments about hearing echoes during kissing scenes. Julia did not find it funny. He did not attend her wedding, and she skipped his. Their relationship remained distant long after filming ended, which surprised fans given their effortless chemistry on screen. In 2000, Julia transformed completely for Erin Brockovich, a role that shocked even those who believed they knew her range. She earned $20 million for the film, becoming the first actress in history to reach that number for a single project. She prepared for 6 months, gained weight to look realistic, and followed the real Erin Brockovich closely, studying how she spoke, walked, and carried herself. She learned the legal language Erin used daily and absorbed her energy. When the film was released, it marked a major turning point. Julia's performance stood out among strong contenders and earned her the Academy Award for Best Actress. Many called it one of the most powerful Oscar wins ever. Around that time, she discovered that her longtime agent had underpaid her early in her career, costing her millions. She fired him immediately. The betrayal hurt deeply but also fueled her determination. She later admitted that the anger helped push her during Erin Brockovich, turning pain into strength and teaching her to demand what she deserved. In 2001, she joined George Clooney and Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11. She insisted on equal pay and equal billing, and the film went on to earn more than $450 million worldwide. Clooney even sent her the script with a single $20 bill and a note joking about her salary. She laughed but still made it clear she would not tolerate disrespect. She walked off set once when a joke crossed a line, showing she knew her worth. In 2003, she starred in Mona Lisa Smile and earned $25 million, another record. The film made $141 million, but critics were harsh, calling it predictable and dull. The criticism weighed heavily on her, and she stepped away from acting for nearly 2 years, feeling exhausted and uncertain. She returned in 2007 with Charlie Wilson's War and received praise along with a Golden Globe nomination. Behind the scenes, though, she clashed with director Mike Nichols over accent choices and later described the experience as emotionally draining. Some critics felt her Texas accent was uneven, but her performance still drew attention and helped carry the film. In the years that followed, her career became a mix of risks and successes. Ocean's 12 earned $363 million, and she even played a version of herself. At the same time, leaked photos and rumors stirred tabloids. In 2006, she took a risk by stepping onto Broadway. The opening week of 3 Days of Rain earned over $1 million, but critics were unforgiving, saying she lacked confidence on stage. The reviews cut deep, and her run ended earlier than expected. Stories about diva behavior followed her as well, including claims during Closer that her demands cost studios extra money. Through it all, Julia Roberts continued to navigate fame, criticism, power, and personal truth, shaping a career built not just on success, but on survival and self-respect. There were also quiet rumors about tension between Julia and John Malkovich, and stories that her arriving late on set caused expensive reshoots. Whether these claims were true or exaggerated, they added to an image of a star under constant pressure, someone who sometimes valued comfort and control over smooth teamwork. In Hollywood, stories grow fast, and once they start, they rarely stop. Julia's career moved forward anyway. In 2009, she starred in Duplicity alongside Clive Owen and earned another Golden Globe nomination. She refused to do nude scenes, which alone became news. Around the same time, a rumored leak from a changing room sparked a tabloid frenzy. Real events mixed with false ones, and for weeks, people talked more about gossip than about the film itself. Still, Julia did what she had always done. She kept working, because her career had trained her to keep moving no matter how loud the noise became. In 2010, Eat, Pray, Love was released and turned into one of her biggest box office successes, earning hundreds of millions worldwide. She was paid $10 million for the role. The story of a woman searching for peace after divorce mirrored parts of Julia's own life following her split from Lyle Lovett. Critics were harsh, calling the film self-centered and saying she turned personal pain into entertainment. Audiences felt differently. Many connected deeply with her performance and felt seen through her journey. The movie helped secure her place in popular culture as someone who could tell stories about healing and emotional growth in a way that felt personal and real. In 2014, Julia took on a very different role in HBO's The Normal Heart. She played Dr. Emma Bruckner in a powerful film about the early days of the AIDS crisis. The project earned 16 Emmy nominations and won 2 awards. Julia was nominated as well, making her one of only a few women ever to be nominated for both an Oscar and an Emmy for acting in the same year. The film aired on May 25, 2014, and reached more than 1 million viewers. For the role, she shaved her head to stay true to the real-life character. Behind the scenes, she fought hard for honesty, arguing that some moments were too softened and did not fully reflect the pain of the crisis. Her push led to script changes and showed how deeply she cared about telling the truth, even when it was uncomfortable. In 2018, she entered television fully with Homecoming, her first major series lead. The show premiered on November 2nd, and her performance as Heidi Bergman quickly became one of the most praised of the year. She was fiercely protective of the story's tension and tone and even dismissed writers she felt were weakening the material. Season 1 earned a 93% rating on Rotten Tomatoes and proved that Julia could transition into television without losing her power or presence. In 2022, she reunited with George Clooney in Ticket to Paradise, which earned $168 million worldwide and reminded audiences of their easy chemistry. That same year, she starred in Gaslit, a series that sparked controversy. Critics accused the project of whitewashing the story of Martha Mitchell, especially since Julia openly supported President Biden. Reviews were mixed, and the show landed at 54% on Rotten Tomatoes, reflecting how divided people felt about her choices at that time. In 2023, she appeared in Leave the World Behind, released on December 8 and produced by Barack and Michelle Obama. The film crossed 100 million views and became one of Netflix's most watched originals of the year. Behind the scenes, tension was real. Her character's hidden racism became a central theme, and it caused friction between Julia and Ethan Hawke. Scenes were rewritten as emotions ran high. The director later confirmed that the atmosphere on set was tense and that the changes reflected real creative conflict. In the summer of 2025, after The Hunt was released, it aimed to be bold and timely, focusing on a professor facing harassment allegations. Instead, it failed badly, earning only $5.6 million against a massive budget. Critics gave it a low score and questioned how the sensitive topic was handled. Although Julia received a Visionary Award that year, the film reignited debates about her recent career choices. Her personal life continued to attract attention as well. In June 1993, she stunned the public by marrying country singer Lyle Lovett after just 3 weeks of dating. The wedding took place on June 27 in Indiana with only 75 guests. She was filming The Pelican Brief at the time and had only 3 days off, so everything was arranged in just 48 hours. The marriage license was even signed on his tour bus to avoid the press. They divorced after 21 months, and the media labeled them one of Hollywood's strangest pairings. In 2000, she met Danny Moder on the set of The Mexican. At the time, he was married, and she was dating Benjamin Bratt. Their relationship caused a public storm. Moder's wife accused Julia of stealing her husband. Rumors spread that Julia wore a shirt with a mocking message, which she denied. She and Moder married in July 2002 after his divorce was finalized, and their marriage lasted more than 2 decades. In 2023, during her appearance on Finding Your Roots, Julia learned that her 4th great-grandfather, Edward Townsend, had owned enslaved people who worked on a 2,000-acre farm. The ages ranged from 6 to 33. She looked visibly shaken as she listened and said that history cannot be ignored or turned away from. Having converted to Hinduism in 2010, the moment connected deeply with her ongoing search for truth and accountability. She later spoke about the importance of facing uncomfortable family histories instead of hiding from them. In 2024, she finally reconciled with her brother Eric Roberts after many years of distance caused by addiction struggles and a painful custody dispute over his daughter Emma. With a net worth estimated around $250 million, Julia built Red OM Films, producing projects including films for the American Girl franchise. Her influence grew beyond acting into business and production. Despite whispers about difficult behavior and unconfirmed stories about conflicts on set, her legacy continues to stand strong. People magazine named her the most beautiful woman in the world 5 times. She fought for equal pay long before it became a global conversation. In 2025, she received a Knight of the Arts honor, recognizing her lasting impact. Through every rumor, failure, and triumph, Julia Roberts remained someone the world watched closely, not just because she was famous, but because she held her place with determination, resilience, and heart.